Hi everyone, Transforming the 5000 here. So just before I start, this will obviously contain major spoilers for Rise of the Beast, which I'm sure most of you have seen by now, but just on the odd chance that someone hasn't, that's your spoiler warning. Now this is my own interpretation of how Optimus Prime beats Scourge. I've wanted to do this video for a while. I wanted to do it initially in a different way to what I'm doing now, but stay tuned to the end of the video because I'm actually going to touch up upon this point. Now this is my own interpretation. I'm not saying anything is fact here. I'm going on my experience as a martial artist, and I'm going on my experience of watching the film and analysing it and breaking it down. So I'm not trying to say this is hardcore facts, but it's enough for me to present this to you as a reasonable grounds on this belief. And if you disagree with me, feel free to comment in the comments. Just keep it friendly, keep it constructive, and that's great. So this is going to be how Optimus Prime beats Scourge, because a lot of people think, oh, Hasbro and Paramount, they nerfed Scourge in the final fight of the film. And when I first watched the film, first couple of times I watched the film, I thought that too. How does Optimus Prime go from absolutely getting destroyed in a fight with Scourge to then Optimus Prime absolutely annihilating Scourge? How does it happen? Now, I want to make it clear with the time difference between Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast. So there's 7 years between them two. A lot can happen in them 7 years. I want to talk about Optimus Prime's experience as a fighter. So, in this timeline, we haven't seen Optimus Prime do a whole lot like the Bayverse. We've seen Optimus Prime go against Megatron, Starscream, Grindor, Shockwave. We've seen Optimus Prime go against a lot. And although we have seen Optimus Prime in a Bumblebee movie and Rise of the Beasts, he still hasn't been explored as much as Bayverse Prime. Now, in Bumblebee movie, we saw Optimus Prime taking on loads of Decepticons, and he was using his gun and some hand-to-hand combat. Now, 7 years later, Rise of the Beast, this is a major thing that I think a lot of people are overlooking, and it's a fact that, believe it or not, but Optimus Prime is kind of rusty. I will tell you as my own experience as a martial artist, if you have a little bit of time away, even if you're really good, and I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here, but I got to quite a high level in kickboxing. Even if I saw in other martial artists who got to a high level, even if anyone has time away from any martial art or any sort of fighting, and you come back to it, it's so hard to get back into. Even if it's a couple of weeks, it's hard. Now, we're talking 7 years. I know Transformers' lifespans are longer, it goes for millions of years, and therefore a few years to them is not that long. But it still stands as a good point, because Cybertron, on Bumblebee movie, Optimus Prime was fighting dozens of Decepticons, and that was his daily routine. Every single day he was fighting Decepticons, and he was used to that environment. So every time he went in a fight, he was already in the mindset. Whereas when he came to Earth in Bumblebee, although he has been said to fight Decepticons and throw them in the river, it can be assumed that he's fighting Decepticons every now and then, and it's a one-on-one fight. That's why I think Optimus Prime struggled a little bit against Transit, because, Transit was bigger than him, but Optimus Prime wasn't in that mindset that he was on Cybertron, where he was going against dozens of Decepticons every single day, and it was his daily routine, whereas on Earth, he hadn't fought for so long, and it was a one-on-one fight, which changes the dynamic quite a bit in a fight. And Optimus Prime just wasn't as... I think he was switched on, but he wasn't as in that fighting mind that he was on Cybertron. He still has that to him, but it wasn't to a degree that it was on Cybertron, where he was used to it every day and it wasn't anything different. Whereas 7 years on Earth, and he was fighting a Decepticon one day, then maybe a few weeks later fighting another one, then maybe a year later fighting another one. We don't know how many Decepticons he fought, but it's safe to assume it wasn't at the frequency it was on Cybertron. So that itself makes Optimus Prime at a disadvantage, because he's not as sharp, he's not got his skills as much. Now, in terms of how Optimus Prime actually beats Scourge, I want you to think about the the fight scenes. So we see 3 fight scenes in Rise of the Beast with Prime and Scourge. We see the first one at the museum, we see the mountain one, and we see the final battle. Now, Scourge beats Optimus in the first one. The second one is a bit of a draw. The third one is, obviously, Prime beats him. Prime wins. I think it would also be good to sort of maybe say Scourge. I don't think Scourge feared Prime, but I think Prime surprised Scourge. He even commented saying, I love your fire, Prime. And I think Scourge is used to going up against opponents and just wiping them out fairly quickly, whereas Optimus Prime, he beat him, he stabbed him, and absolutely destroyed him. And then Optimus Prime comes back, and then again Optimus Prime comes back again, and 3 fights against the same guy, and Optimus is still going, and I think he definitely surprised Scourge, almost getting his respect, I feel, because Scourge is really putting up a good fight, and Optimus is just taking everything literally. The mountain fight, it's not until Optimus actually going and fighting Scourge. He's running up to him, saying that he's going to kill him and everything. I can think of no better place to bury you. That scene. Optimus is running to Scourge, ready for that fight, and it's not until Ares is injured and then Optimus sees Nightbird and Battletrap actually backing up Scourge that Prime sort of turns around like, yeah, you know what, I'll fight you later, because he knows, his comrade's injured and there's an extra 2, Nightbird and Battletrap, that he has to deal with. Maybe he could have taken on Scourge then, but 3 against 1, it would have been definitely, I think Optimus would have lost that one. Now, in terms of talking about the fighting style, so we've already said Optimus Prime's rusty, and Scourge is used to being dominant in a fight. Now, I want to talk about the weaponry. So in the first fight, the museum fight, we see Optimus have a lot of handheld weapons, the axe and the sword. Scourge uses a lot of sort of hand-to-hand in terms of deflecting Optimus Prime's axe and sword, and Scourge will use the environment around him, which is a point I want to get to as well, the environment. But Scourge uses the environment like a pole or something like that, like a street light sort of thing, and also Scourge uses his sword. Now in terms, and this goes throughout the film, this even goes to the final battle, whenever Optimus Prime uses his blades, whether that's an axe or a sword, it basically always fails against Scourge. Up until the end of the film, just the final bit, the final shot when Optimus kills Scourge, whenever Optimus uses his blades, it's always pretty much a fail against Scourge. In terms of hand-to-hand with blades and axes, swords, Scourge definitely is superior to Optimus, because if Optimus was better than Scourge at sword fighting and things like that, then Optimus would have definitely beat Scourge a lot quicker. But now every time Optimus used his blades against Scourge, Scourge just annihilated Prime. Whether he blocked it with his own blade, or whether Scourge deflected Optimus's weapons by sort of grabbing Optimus' hand and twisting it around and sort of pushing the axe away or the sword away, every single time Scourge beat Prime in terms of blades. In terms of strength, there's no denying Scourge is a much stronger opponent than Optimus. He, pinned him down pretty quickly. And definitely Scourge is tougher than Prime. In terms of durability, I definitely think Scourge is more durable than previous, Transformer that Prime's gone against. Optimus, when he was fighting Transit, he shot Transit and it's sort of assumed that shot kills Transit. I know that's a deleted scene, but it still counts here. Optimus shot Transit in one shot and assumed to kill him, whereas Optimus was shooting at a rapid fire in the mountain scene, Scourge in vehicle mode. He was just rapid firing him, and Scourge was just absorbing all these shots, and it didn't even seem to harm him. So in terms of those, Transit getting shot, killed, and Scourge getting shot by rapid fire, and it barely doing anything, there's definitely a big contrast of those two durabilities compared to a standard Decepticon to Scourge. They're miles apart. Scourge is a lot more durable and a lot more stronger. Now, in terms of Optimus Prime's gun, it seems to have two sort of firing rates. A single shot against Transit and a sort of auto firing against Scourge. In terms of sort of Scourge's weapons as well, we see when Scourge fires his gun, it usually destroys everything. It's quite a powerful gun. Yet Optimus Prime was shot point blank in the face against Scourge's gun, and it barely did anything. It did hurt him, it grazed him, but it didn't blow his head off, and it was shot point blank range by Scourge's gun. So I think that also goes to show that Optimus Prime is also quite durable as well. So in terms of durability, they're both fairly good, but Scourge is obviously stronger. In terms of experience, we can't really say. Obviously, Optimus Prime has a lot of experience, but Scourge is still a bit of a mystery character. We don't know how far his history goes back, and everything like that. It's hard to tell in terms of that. So I'm not going to say for sure on that. In terms of the final battle, this is where Optimus Prime beats Scourge, because what I noticed is in the museum fight, Scourge fights Optimus, blade against blade, and again Scourge was deflecting Optimus Prime with his hand movements, whether he deflects his blades or sort of parries it or whatever he does. Whereas in the final fight, Scourge seems to use his gun a lot. Scourge barely uses his sword. Now Optimus Prime does, use his hand-to-hand combats, and a lot of the time Scourge does overpower Prime. He kicks him down, gets his Terracons on him, and a lot of the time Scourge is winning. And even in that fight, when Scourge gets hit, it's showing you how durable he is. Optimus Prime slams Scourge's face against a rotating piece of metal that's like grinding his head away, the side that's actually damaged. Now that is just absolutely insane, because that shows how durable Scourge is. He's getting his head grinded away, and he's still talking like, "Master, the reinforcements." He's not screaming, he's just getting his head grinded away, and he's just talking casually. So it really shows Scourge's durability. We saw a similar thing in Dark of the Moon, where Megatron was, injured by his head injury, and Sentinel grabbed Megatron, and that really hurt Megatron. Whereas Scourge just pushed him against a big metal bit of turning, rotating, grinding piece of thing, and and Scourge is just carrying on as normal. It really shows how durable he is. And that leads me to another point, the sort of environment around them. In terms of the museum fight, Scourge and the Terracons are just going all out. And, the Autobots trying to protect the humans, trying to protect the artifact, and just Terracons just going all out. In terms of the mountain fight, the chase scene, that's a very difficult one to do, because the environment is Scourge and Prime are both tumbling down at quite a fast rate down the hill, and Optimus has got a decent hit on Scourge, which does actually hurt Scourge, and even times where Optimus on that mountain fight is trying to swing at Scourge with his axe, Scourge is always sort of dodging them. So even in that sort of situation, Scourge is quite overpowering. But in terms of that environment, it's a difficult one for either one, because they're both tumbling down the hill. So, yeah. And in terms of the final battle environment, there's a lot of stuff they can use around them, like the metal piece turning that's, grind Scourge's face away, and all the Terracons below and everything. You've got a lot of environmental factors, and the lava. So that's something that I think definitely Optimus Prime learnt, because Scourge was using his environment in the first museum fight when he used the lamppost and everything like that, and throws Bumblebee into the museum. Whereas in the final fight, I think Optimus definitely learns about what went on in the first fight in the museum, and adapts it and starts using Optimus's, his environment to his advantage. He uses the metal piece of grinding, uses the lava, and it definitely shows you the change in Optimus, because although he does flip at the end and goes a little bit into Bayverse Prime, the rage, Optimus is constantly learning. he gets beaten, then he starts to get a little bit better in the mountain chase scene. And then the final fight all sort of comes together, and Optimus Prime is using his advantage. He's not, trying to give Scourge many sort of opportunities. And with the final fight, as I was going, a few minutes ago with the final fight about how that goes down, Scourge is using his gun a lot. Now, although Optimus has help from Noah, and Noah, to his credit, stabs Scourge in the back of the knee, which is that would hurt. That'd hurt for anyone. But Scourge is using his gun a lot, like a lot. Whereas in the previous fight, Scourge was using his blade. And Scourge didn't seem to be able to cope with Optimus when Scourge was using his gun. Because you've got to remember, Scourge has transformed one of his arms into a gun, and he only has one arm free. So at the museum fight, Scourge could deflect and block Optimus's attacks with both arms, but this time they only got one. The other arm is occupied with his gun. So when Optimus Prime is swinging and everything like that, although Scourge does block some of them and deflect them, he's got one arm as a gun, and it's not that effective because he shoots Optimus point blank in the face and it doesn't do anything. And Scourge he doesn't seem to learn in the final fight. He just seems to use his gun a lot. We know Scourge can beat a lot of people with his blades because we saw it in the Ape-Link fight. Ape-Link is a massive transformer, he's very strong. And I do think if Scourge didn't use his sword in that fight, Ape-Link would have probably done some damage against Scourge and the fight would have been a bit more prolonged. But at the end of the day, Scourge beat Ape-Link because he deployed his sword. Scourge's sword is definitely his strength. I don't think Scourge's gun is all that effective, and I think Scourge knows how to use a gun, but I don't think he knows how to use a gun, if that makes sense. Going back to the Cybertron scene in Bumblebee, when Optimus was taking on Decepticons every day, what was Optimus Prime using? His gun. In terms of weaponry, Optimus is much more of a marksman than Scourge. That's what I think. So while Scourge has the advantage in blades, Optimus has the advantage in firepower. Maybe I can't say which of their guns is more powerful, but I could definitely say that Optimus is more of a marksman in terms of weaponry, guns, than Scourge is. Just by going off what we've seen, evidence-wise. So Scourge is definitely not as good as shooting as Optimus is. And, when it does actually come to the final fight, right at the end of it, Scourge is still using his gun and it's not getting him anywhere. And I think Scourge realises this because when Scourge shoots the control panel right at the end of the film, obviously he's using his gun. But if you look at Scourge's right arm, it's just normal. There's no weapon deployed, there's no sword deployed or anything like that. Whereas in the next shot, when Optimus goes, "I've had enough," you can see Scourge has deployed his sword in his right arm. And then Optimus Prime chops off Scourge's left arm and then slices his waist, and then he goes to, obviously, his right arm and his head to stab. But you can actually see in that final shot, Scourge has deployed his sword. I think he finally realises the mistake. The museum fight, Scourge was owning Prime because Optimus was using his swords and his axes, and Scourge was using his blade. Scourge was superior in terms of that. The mountain chase scene, they was using a little bit of everything. Scourge was shooting Prime, but he missed. Optimus punched Scourge and it hurt him. Optimus swung his axe at Scourge and it missed. So it used a little bit of everything in that fight. And this final fight, Optimus was using his blades, but it was against Scourge's gun mainly. And even though Scourge used his hand-to-hand combats and blocked and deflected some of Optimus's, sword attacks in that final fight, it wasn't to the degree that it was in the museum fight. And I think that's down to Scourge changing his tactics in the final fight, maybe to be a bit more unpredictable for Prime, because he's not gone up against him gun-to-gun before. And Scourge just uses his gun a lot. And that really gives Optimus an opportunity to get in there and do some damage. Now, in that final shot, as I mentioned, Optimus is just slicing Scourge up, and that final shot we see Scourge deploying his sword to try and strike Prime, but it's too late because Optimus stabs him in the head and rips his head off. I genuinely feel, if Scourge deployed his sword right at the start of the fight, I think Scourge could have beaten Prime, definitely. Because Optimus is still using his swords, and even though he's learned about Scourge's tactics, it still wouldn't have been enough for Prime to beat Scourge using hand-to-hand and blade combat. I don't think Prime could have beaten that at all. Maybe that could have been like an alternate ending where Scourge beats Prime and then somehow Scourge dies, and obviously then we get the alternate ending when Optimus gets sucked up in the portal and gets taken to Unicron. But it's interesting how we've seen different weapons used, and the consistency of fights. Just sort of wrap it up a little bit, it's the environment of the fight, it's the experience, whether the character has been out of combat for a while, like on Cybertron to Earth in the Bumblebee movie, the 7-year gap. They're out of practice, even though they still know how to fight. They're not as sharp as what they was doing it day to day, to maybe every week or every month or every year or something. And then you've got someone like Scourge, who is superior in terms of strength and blades, hand to hand. But someone in terms of Optimus, he's superior in firepower. And what Scourge did in that final battle was he let his biggest strength go, and that was his swords. And like I said, although he did deflect successfully some of Optimus Prime's sword attacks in the final fight, it just wasn't enough because Optimus was just using Scourge's gun to his advantage, and then Optimus was using his environment to his advantage, like throwing lava at Scourge and the metal grinder. So that's my opinion. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, I said I wanted to do a different sort of video on this. I wanted to get this video out before New Year, just to tie things up, and then 2024 can sort of start fresh, and I don't have any sort of loose ends. Originally, I wanted to do a video where I basically talk the same like this, but I was going to look at how many sword attacks Optimus does against Scourge when Scourge is using his sword, and how many sword attacks Optimus uses against Scourge when Scourge is using his gun. Then I wanted to see how many shots Optimus Prime took in the film, like how many gunshots they fired, and how successful they were, how many times they actually hit or did some damage. And I wanted to basically look at the actual strength, kind of like I've done in this video, but from a sort of like a mathematical, scientific sort of perspective. And I wanted to actually look at the percentage and, calculate the percentage and the ratio of the success rates of Optimus against Scourge, Optimus against Transit, and Decepticons on Cybertron, and then look at the percentage of Scourge against Ape Link, Scourge against Prime. Like, look at the actual stats of how successful they were when they were using hand-to-hand or blades or guns or whatever against, whatever the opponent was using, whether they were doing guns, whatever, swords. And also look at the environment as well, and look specifically how that changes each fight, which I have done in this video, but the original video was to look at those percentages and ratio and the actual mathematics and present them to you, and then you can make your own mind up. But I wouldn't have had time to do that before New Year, and I think what I've done today is actually pretty good as well. I would have still talked about the same stuff. It would have just, I would have had those figures to present to you on screen. But if you actually want me to do that, I'll definitely consider it. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it. I'm not going to say I'm not going to do it. But if people want that video, then I'll be happy to try and do my best. Not sure when it would come out. I would have to actually sit down and properly analyse everything. I mean, I have already, but in terms of actually getting to those percentage numbers and ratio numbers, I would actually have to sit down and count literally everything, and the speed of how fast they swing, and the reaction time, things like that. I would actually have to sort of do that. But I still think what I've done here is quite interesting. I've talked for about as long as I thought I would, so I think it's a good point to wrap it up. I don't think there's any points left unaddressed. If I do think of anything else, then maybe I'll do a part 2, or if I do a part 2, maybe that's when I can talk about those ratio numbers and percentage numbers. But let me know your thoughts. Again, I'm not saying this is canon to the film. I'm not saying I am right, but I'm saying this is the evidence shown to me as the film progressed, and as a martial artist myself, how I feel. Because I've definitely had it when I've not gone to martial arts for a couple of weeks, whether I've been sick or on holiday or something, and when you get back into it, you're definitely rusty. And I've had it where I've gone against opponents in sparring. I'm not one of these big competition fighters or anything, but I've had it in sparring where I've been against someone when they've had better kicks than me, or maybe they've had more agility than me. I used to pair up with this person who, they were like a parkour person. They did parkour and free running, and they would literally backflip off the wall. And even though they had only done kickboxing for a few years, and I'd done it for like 6-7 years at the time, I didn't know what to do with them, because they were just backflipping off walls and everything like that. And I'm looking at them thinking, whoa, wow, okay, you're different. And I've had it where I've gone against someone and I've had better kicks than them, but they've had better punches than me, or vice versa. And I also think in terms of what you give into a fight or sparring, because definitely I don't think Scourge gave as much in that final fight because of the limitations he probably unconsciously put on himself. Whereas Optimus Prime didn't hold back, he gave everything. And that definitely goes to show in martial arts. If you go against someone in sparring, and sparring is never something that you go full on contact, it's just light sparring. But I've definitely had days where I've sparred against someone and I've maybe held back for whatever reason. Maybe I was not having a good day and I wasn't in it. In my mind, I wasn't in the game. Or maybe I was trying my defense a bit more, where someone was attacking and I was trying to sort of block and defend and bob weave and parry and whatever. So it looks like the person attacking me is absolutely destroying me because I'm not throwing anything back, but I'm actually just taking a little bit of step back and trying to block and defend and everything like that. And then the next week when I come back in against the same person and I really go all out, again, not all out, but you get what I mean. Like, I'm putting the effort in and I've actually done well against that same person in sparring. So it's down to what that character in the fight puts in and what tools they utilize. Are they going to defend more? Are they going to surprise them more? Again, the backflipping kid I said in sparring, I never come against someone like that. Every single person I sparred against was kind of like me a little bit, or maybe a bit better, because I used to train with a lot of adults when I was a teenager, so I was always overpowered anyway. But it didn't stop me. And when that kid who did a lot of parkour, when he came in, I had no idea how to deal with him. I had to learn. Granted, no one's in the ring is going to start doing backflips, probably not. But in a street fight or something, they could do. And that goes the same with fictional characters in fights. Maybe Scourge didn't meet someone like Prime, as I mentioned in this video, at the start of this video. You know, maybe Scourge hasn't met anyone like Prime where he's absolutely destroyed him, then Prime comes back again, and then he comes back again, and Scourge is thinking, what's it going to take to get this guy down? But anyway, I think that is definitely everything. I definitely feel my voice a little bit affected now. I think I started the video and I was a bit louder, and now I've gone a little bit quieter. I've talked for half an hour straight. Look at that. But anyway, if you agree with me, if you disagree, let me know in the comments below. Please feel free to share this video and everything like that. I have a Discord link below, Instagram, TFM5000. I'll also type it below in the description. I hope everyone had a good Christmas, and I hope you all have a happy new year. Thank you everyone for your support, and I'm definitely hoping 2024 is definitely a better year for all of us. Without anything else, thank you very much. Take care and have a great end to 2023. Till all are one.